Welcome back to the Cuphead Delicious Last ranking. Last time I showcased the 10 best bosses in the game, check it out in the description if you missed it. Today, it's all about the difficulty, something Cuphead is no stranger to. Without further ado, here are my top 10 hardest Cuphead bosses, including the new DLC. Number 10, Genie the Great. I think the Genie's wish was for Studio MDHR to make aviation battles the cream of the difficulty crop. In a list with no shortage of them, Genie kicks us off with strong design diversity. Phase 1 streams treasure with parryable gems or feline sarcophagi that spit bigger tracking obstacles. Right from the get-go, what makes playing battles a unique challenge is apparent. Without grounded restrictions on the player, free movement enabled the developers to crank the danger dial to 11. Your ability to shift through tight evasive windows and keep offensive pressure on is put to the test in every plane battle, this first section being no exception. Phase 2 is deceptively troublesome. Shooting safe spaces to fly through the panning screen pillars and dodge saw pinwheels isn't rough on the surface, but the small openings and many elements to track can throw you off. Losing HP here always feels like a gut punch. Phase 3 is similarly temperamental. You can quickly end the section by floating above and bombing, only shrinking to dodge planets to reach the top. You've likely reached full super here to make it even shorter, though I'd recommend saving it for the final 2 hardest phases. Puppet Phase is a masterclass in overwhelming poor multitaskers. The puppet bouncing around, shooting bullets in a methodical manner, and the turbine spraying spinning pellets. You need to avoid both objects and their attacks, making space minuscule if you position poorly. All of this down, you have to hope you've made few mistakes ahead of phase 5, a spin cycle of pyramids blocking your sight lines and firing moving vertical and horizontal lasers, all while Genie's oversized face fires beam waves at you. Once again, your ability to attack has to be balanced with constant evasion and planning. Many of his phases are difficult in a vacuum. When put together for a single run to victory, it's no surprise his diverse gauntlet of phases makes the list, and we're only getting started. Even if Genie can't grant his own wish of being the hardest boss, there's a wish he can grant. Protection from dangerous bosses of net safety courtesy of NordVPN, whom you can check out below to support the channel. Every second of online browsing is a deal with the devil for your personal information. NordVPN not only encrypts your connection, they offer threat protection, an advanced anti-malware feature keeping you safe from online trackers and malicious files. While hidden, you can virtually travel abroad to unlock TV, movies, or video games unavailable in your region with a simple click. They even stop your ISP from throttling speeds to keep your streaming and gaming buttery smooth without interruption. All of this and more with a risk-free, money-back guarantee. Now that's more of an angel's bargain. To make internet devils cry like babies, follow my link in the description with creator code THEDEMOCRACY to receive a hefty discount. Thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video, and thank you for listening. Number 9, Howling Aces. Another take on plane combat, this time we're fighting airborne canines on foot. The first phase only has a handful of reasonably handled mechanics, but when they start overlapping later on with homing fire hydrants and tennis ball rain, a momentary lapse in focus costs vital HP. Not for the second phase. That part is stupid easy and allows you to farm super. You'll need it. Howling Aces flew up the list for a single reason. The perspective shift in the final phase that alters your controls to match makes my brain short circuit. It's as simple as that. I have no grand analysis, it's just really damn hard when the screen twists and suddenly up on the joystick is right, right is down, left is up, and down is left. I'm confused merely saying that, let alone executing it. Instead, I pathetically jump in place using the weak homing shots and blasting away with super. That doesn't help when you need to strafe to successfully dodge incoming hydrants, nor does it help when I mentally misread the movements for lasers flipped all around. I was steadfast in my adoration for the shakeup in my last video, but that doesn't mean it's easy for me to handle in the slightest. Number 8, Moritmer Freeze. Keeping with the DLC, this frosty fanatic floats freely above you. He only does 3 things: tosses icicles that wander until killed, throws large tarot cards, and whale slams underneath himself. All of these are easy to deal with. What isn't is his roofside location. Unless you use Chaser, it can be demanding to jump or angle attacks while dodging him. The abominable snowman is much tougher. His dash and jump dash are well telegraphed by rearing back or lifting up respectively, but the delivery is fast enough that you have to process and react quite fast. The fridge tossing killable popsicles isn't inherently difficult, but parrying for super can be tricky if they're bunched together. The ice cubes it spits in varying sizes always keep you on your toes, however, since they always break down from large, medium to small in order before disappearing. You have to calculate their movement on reaction to which size you get, keeping the mechanic variable every time. Finally, you're hoisted above to fight a large Moritmer Moritmer Freeze flake on spinning platforms, while he tosses his eye with vertical beams, spirits that circle the platform, and an outward barrage of icicles or buckets that break off to create more hectic hazards. No individual mechanic is tremendously difficult, it's a collection of solid challenges across the board that collectively pounds the margin for error. Simple mistakes continuously send you back to the start, demanding you put the perfect run together. That was tough enough to merit Mortimer a spot at number 8. Number 7, Grim Matchstick. My old arch nemesis that I ranked highly on initial release, Grim stands the test of time, mostly. I found moving through the clouds easier this time around, while the coffee equipped to passively generate super was a huge boon. Plus I learned Lobber is a great tool for the final 2 phases. Really, Grim is the boss that taught me not to go into every battle with the same loadout. Consider the boss's advantages and how different parts of your kit can counteract them. First phase, you parry beams, juke the fireballs, and dodge the tail. It's not bad at all, with movement feeling more natural than my memory would suggest. I used to find the clouds tough to spot against the background while your eyes dart around. Perhaps years of playing hard games has steeled me for this sort of thing. I could speak similarly about phase 2. I used to struggle loads with the marching band of fire, but with Lobber it's no problem. Simply hold down the shoot button while leaping back and forth in the opposite direction the band ember faces. None of this is necessarily easy, it's about on par with the rest of Cuphead's bosses. So why is Matchstick here? Phase 3 still gives me conniptions. I consistently make it there only to get obliterated in seconds. I have a habit of continuous shooting, which the bubble flames deter by popping in a plus motion. Lobber helps, as do the normal super shots it makes with coffee helping generate that, but the background issue came into play here. I used to say the colors were too similar while you're tracking so many things, but here I realize it's the tracking itself that plays me for a fool. My focus is centered left against his large model, reducing my ability to react when my attention darts rightward as he fires. At least the big flame offers reprieve, but even that feels odd when it forces you to the bottom of the map. All in all, my memory about the first 2/3 may not ring as true, but that final phase still roasted me far more than I'd care to remember. Number 6, Moonshine Mob. I'm really interested to see thoughts on this one. On paper, Moonshine Mob doesn't seem like a difficult boss. The second phase dances back and forth with a dangerous hitbox, but the range is limited, allowing easy dodges for observant players while shooting constantly to KO any entering mobs. The third phase is essentially standing dead center until you take free pot shots. The final phase, while a devious surprise that got me my first time, has barely any health after the ambush is revealed. The only reason Moonshine Mob climbs well above the average is that damn first phase. The spider zooms around making old-timey grumbles amidst an OG Super Mario Bros. Homage stage, calling in bombs, bouncing caterpillars, and security trying to exterminate you. Because of his constant entry and exit, movement, and unpredictability, this phase lasts for what feels like ages. His backup is great at diverting damage from him, elongating the fight further, creating more opportunity for mistakes. Super can help shorten things, but parries are hard to come by thanks to the tight quarters, making double jumps within your lane difficult. I'm not joking when I say this first phase alone killed me over a dozen times. The rest of it isn't the toughest, but when that initial encounter shaves me down to 1 HP, their moderate challenge becomes a lot more imposing. It's hard to rank the experience accurately since it's one of the bosses I died the most to, but I feel like maybe I wouldn't struggle as much if I tried again. For today, I'll do credit to a bug gauntlet I didn't think much of, aspiring to heights near the top 5. Number 5, Cala Maria. I went into great detail about Maria's mechanics in my last video, how her different combos and order variations demand a good understanding of how to handle 9 possible realities on the fly. Anything involving Pirate Ghosts in particular is almost guaranteed to shave 1 HP off of me. That first phase feels like one of the longest in the game, offering plenty of time for her to whip out a dicey combo to ensure you aren't proceeding unscathed. Her other 2 phases are both deadly for the same reason, her freezing attack. Admittedly, I did forget you could nullify this by stopping movement and attacking, or going above her, but even then, you have to stop all control while eel pellets and the environmental debris in the final phase are rampant. It felt like I couldn't make it through the start without losing at least 1 HP, and I couldn't make it through the final 2 parts without losing at least 1 either. That leaves me with a grand total of 1 mistake between all of it without HP buff items, a margin of error throughout that spelled the odds far against my favor, enough to shoot the sultry squid up to number 5. Number 4, Esther Winchester. If you thought Wally getting seasoned by his carrier pigeons upon his defeat was brutal, wait until you ground this beef into sausage links through this savage bout. In a continued pattern, the bullet hell chaos of plane segments continues to throw me for a loop. Esther moving up and down between a bird dropping off dynamite firing upward in waves of 5, another shooting spike orbs at you, and her ink blotch shots that buzzard through, there's a lot to keep track of. Being close to her felt deadly, taking bombs off the table. Instead, I pea shoot away in pathetic attempts to avoid it all, then she'd slam a cactus into a horizontal half, either catching me napping or cutting off my offense temporarily. Her second phase is backward Jamie's first, sucking in a bunch of debris, then launching it outward. From there, you have to chase her sausage form throughout cans linking upward or downward to block your flight, as she moves up and down herself to make offense further difficult, all while chunking spinning stakes your way. If you can make it through all of that, she'll spew scissor sausage out of a can while peppering you with peppers to spice up the difficulty. If it weren't for the parrying buff that let you reclaim HP, I could have been stuck here for ages. In spite of it, she made mincemeat of me for almost an hour. Like many who came before, it's an endurance test throughout all her different phases, yet each is getting progressively harder, making the collective gauntlet a hardy challenge. Number 3, Beppi the Clown. This fucking clown. I hate your scooty scoot start, rubbing your go-kart's ass all over the arena. Stay in your lane, Beppi. This part is not hard. I repeat, it is not hard. That is until Beppi randomly bumps into your half of the arena. I swear, this gets me every time. No matter how many times I see it, I always think he stays in his half until he runs over my foot. Losing HP in this phase is so frustrating because it's seemingly so simple, unlike any that follow. The balloon doggos narrow the sides of the arena as a danger zone, forcing you to stay boxed in the middle while a roller coaster flies through to avoid. Jumping the passengers without bumping into them requires dutiful popping. The third phase is a crapshoot for me. I'm so awful at dodging his swerving horseshoes from the green horse that I try to intentionally end the second part as the coaster leaves so I can stand under him and fire away. That planning puts you at higher risk of getting chewed out by the aforementioned dogs, so you trade one evil for another. Dodging the horseshoe successfully while the coaster rides through feels impossible. The final part is made possible for me only by saving Super. He won't spawn his baseball penguins for a bit, nor the coaster, so you can fire away freely with spread up close, then beam the majority of the rest of its health away when the penguins appear. To win, I have to not get bumped by Beppi's car, be an evasion master in a safety shoebox, get a perfect setup for horsey time, then blast away the final phase or perish. It's not that there are no other options, I'm just so bad at fighting Beppi any other way that without this plan, I'm the one applying clown makeup after dozens of deaths. Number 2, Chef Saltbaker. Consider him an elevated version of the Moonshine Mob or Grim Matchstick. Yes, there is challenge in the Pepper Shakers and Final Salty Ascension, but the first phase, man, my god! I would rank the first phase alone as harder than more than half of the bosses in the game. I've harped today on bosses being difficult with various elements diverting your attention. Case in point, delightfully animated tails queuing up 4 different types of assaults from either side of the map, all while an arcing fireball homes to your position every few seconds. Combinations are another thing I've made a point of, with unpredictability as to what comes out next and how exactly they move when they arrive. Every single decision you make is vital to how you'll be able to handle what the next one will be. Dodging certain ways might work to avoid that individual attack, but it places you in a compromised position for what follows. You need to be on point every second of this encounter. It lasts a long time too, with the first half making up the majority of the fight. Speaking of other phases, I'll mention in detail that the Pepper Shakers have great tells, but similarly to the first, the falling seasonings and still threatening fireball make strategic movement vital. The third phase is a joke, but the fourth is underrated in its ability to threaten with the small space, rapid platform movement, and necessary planning of his trajectory to make sure you don't collide, all while ensuring you can sufficiently attack. There's little doubt to me that Saltbaker is the game's most demanding boss, that is, other than my choice for the hardest, Dr. Cal's robot. No boss held up as well as this brutal bot. Everything I've said about playing levels to this point applies. The freedom of movement made the devs go hog wild with hazards in a smaller space than usual due to the bot's large stature taking up a lot of the arena. There's no ending this phase quickly either. You'll have to slog through damaging each of his 3 weak points, deal with the changes in the attacks they force, and then KO the heart to end it all. That is just the beginning. Even though the second phase is as safe as you play it, it's not unrealistic to lose some HP trying to force more damage to get to the finale, or making bad loops with the bombs and getting blown up. Where Saltbaker front loads his difficulty, the robot does as well, gives mine a reprieve in the middle, then goes bananas in the end with refractions that come by far the closest we get to true bullet hell status in Cuphead. The foreground plays tricks on my eyes as the shocks flash, the barriers block you, and you bob and weave between them all. You desperately want healthier to make mistakes, but that means flawless mastery of the beginning, a massively tall order. It was really close between Saltbaker and Dr. Cow's robot. If we're talking about the hardest individual part of any fight, Saltbaker Part 1, hands down. But as a full package, the start and finish of the robot boasts more difficulty than anything else in Cuphead. But of course, that's just my opinion. What do you think of Cuphead's new and old bosses and their difficulty? We're getting really close to the Flood of Fall releases, so stay tuned for a video detailing what you should be looking forward to as the year comes to a close. Until then, I want to thank you for watching today, much love to you, and I'll see you in the next video.